Once again, I welcome you to this exciting episode. And with me on this show today, because I'm not going to be doing this alone, I have my wonderful friend and colleague, my co-host on the show, a very exciting friend, and I'm so happy to have him today, Dr. Gideon Oguniye. I really welcome you to the show. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mary. I'm happy to be here once again this afternoon, and I'm sure that we'll have an exciting episode today.
Definitely. Welcome to the show. Viewers, it's another edition of Every Voice Matters, and today we have an exciting topic that we would like to discuss today. And like we always say, we want your feedbacks on the topic, we want your comments on the topic, we want to know what you think about the topic. And the topic for discussion today is democracy and social media regulation in Africa. It's a trending topic. Like we said, it's something that everyone can relate to. And so we'll be discussing this topic today, looking at different angles and different perspectives to this topic. Like we usually do, I would like to give a short introduction to the topic before I start the conversation with my colleague. According to a 2020 report by Quartz Africa, African countries are not alone in considering how to manage their political landscape. In the wake of the impact of Facebook, Twitter, WhatsApp, amongst others, the social media platforms are also facing rising pressure in Western countries led by the US and the UK to do more to curb so-called fake news, offensive and racial content, as governments lean toward a reform agenda to deal with emergent issues around social media. However, African governments have been particularly heavy-handed in dealing with any possibility of political activist operations on social media, and have taken to blocking, banning, or slowing down social media apps in countries including Ethiopia, Togo, and recently Nigeria. Ultimately, some of these governments have taken to shutting down the country's entire internet, with other African countries such as Zimbabwe and Lesotho and Nigeria taking strong steps to regulate the use of social media platforms for political commentaries, activism, and advocacy activities. Many are concerned about its unwanted consequences, especially in the areas of human rights violations and the institution of democracy in Africa. I'd like to know your comments about this shortly. Gideon, what do you think about the recent trend with the social media regulation in Africa, especially about the seemingly high-handedness of African governments? Because we know that this is not something that is only limited to African governments, but the concern has been about the seemingly high-handedness of African governments in trying to curb or regulate social media platforms. Or what do you think about this briefly, and considering the introduction to the topic?
Yeah, thank you very much, Mary, for that wonderful introduction. What we have seen today is that in many African countries, young people have become critical stakeholders and advocates for fighting for sustainable democracy. And what we've seen is that political advocacy has changed significantly over the past 2 decades. And one of the most significant changes has been the emergence of the internet and several social media platforms that young people now use to express themselves and also participate in political discussion. And we've seen how they are using social media platforms to demand for their rights to participate in politics and governance, to speak to power. All these government operators in Nigeria, in Africa, they have their social media handles, and young people can always go there to criticize unfavorable government policies and practices, to demand for transparency, for fairness of government activities, to assess the overall performance of government, and to campaign for change. So this is what is going on, and young people from Africa are more active than what you have in other continents of the world, because young people in Africa are the one that are most affected by bad governance, bad leadership, and that is why they are more active than their counterparts in other continents to use social media as a means of expressing their views. And we've seen thousands and thousands of them using their social media accounts to demand for accountability, to demand for good governance in Africa. So what I see with the high-handedness of the government in regulating social media is that even though they also use social media for their own campaign, for their own political moves, but they are not comfortable with the freedom that young people in Africa has on social media. So that is why they are hiding under the umbrella of fake news to try to stop young people from using social media. So although there is a problem of fake news, but I don't see governments in Africa trying to stop fake news. What I see them trying to do is that they are trying to stop young people freedom for using social media platforms. So this is what I've seen.
Wow, thank you so much for that insight. You know, as you were giving that insight, two questions came to my mind, you know, looking at two different angles to what you just said. But the first one I wanted to just ask you is, so can we say that with this seemingly high-handedness or the sudden need for African governments to curb or try to, so-called, in their words, regulate social media platforms, can we actually say that the awareness of the young people on the African continent has actually increased? Can we actually say that maybe more young people are aware of the political situations in their country, and they are trying to use the social media platforms to fight, you know, for their rights, to advocate? So can we actually say that there is some green light or something good in that, in the area of awareness and the willingness to participate in the political situation in their countries? Can we actually bring that out of this situation? Do you think so?
Yes, so the vast majority of young people across African countries now use social media and social media platforms like Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and they even have their channels, they have their pages that is devoted to political advocacy. And the vast majority of them even have more than one social media platform that they are using for political advocacy. And the pervasiveness, the openness, the scale of social media makes this easy. For instance, like this advocacy project that we are doing at FACTCANA, you can imagine how much it would cost to set this kind of platform up as a traditional or like a regular broadcast organization. But we are using social media, and currently we are reaching out to about 40 countries of the world. So you can imagine how social media make it so easy for us to be able to. So I would say that young people are more active with the emergence of social media platforms, and they are more aware, they are more educated, they are more informed about what is going on in their society, in their communities, and what is going on with their government, and they are more engaging through the use of social media. And that is what the people in government are not, elected officials are not comfortable with. And I see that they have a wrong impression of how this whole thing is playing out. I expect that the government will also jump on the advantages of social media to actually manage crises. For instance, you see how nations of the world use social media to engage their citizens during the heat of COVID-19 pandemic. You see that a lot of people are looking up to what the government wants to say, and the easiest way for them to get this information is through social media platforms. So what I see with governments in Africa is that they don't have strong social media presence, and one way or the other, they've sort of leave that space for non-state actors to mislead the populace, their populace, to mislead their citizens But the best way to actually tackle fake news is also for you to have a strong internet presence where you can actually push out the correct news. So the opposite of fake news, false narratives, is correct or authentic narratives. So African governments should see social media as platforms for citizen engagement. When you engage your citizen, they are happy. When they see that they are kept in the loop of what is going on in government. And this is another way of building trust. So instead of the government getting scared, getting afraid, and trying to say we must stop social media at all costs, they should look for a way of managing crisis through social media, of engaging the citizens through social media, building good relationships and transparency, building trust, social media, and setting the record straight. So when somebody posts fake news, false narratives, the government also has a responsibility, since they're on that platform, to say, okay, this is the correct record of set the record straight. So, and you also save them money, a lot of money that they will use to do campaign in proper traditional broadcast organization or in print media. It will save them a lot of money. They can reach out to more people through social media and at a very low budget. So this is the way I want African government to look at social media. Instead of getting afraid, getting scared of what social media is, they should look at social media as the future and try to participate on social media in such a way that we make them to be closer to their populace.
Well, I really appreciate that. In fact, that particular paragraph that you mentioned really stuck out for me. Like, instead of being afraid of these social media platforms, instead of being afraid and now trying to curb people or make them, not to use these platforms, it's better for the African governments to bring very productive content, very engaging content that will help them bond, and create trust with their citizens. So there are very positive sides to the use of social media platforms. That really stuck out with me. Now, then the next question I want to ask is going to be focused on we, the young people, and the African citizens. Why I'm saying this is, let's even get the mirror on ourselves for a minute before we start talking about the African government. I mean, to be objective, the issue of fake news, scamming, trolling, a lot of things have been going on, fraud and other things have been going on social media platforms, not only in Africa, in other continents of the world. And there was one that I got to know about recently. Somebody posted a picture of the mutilated body of a baby on social media and said, this baby was killed by herdsmen in Jos community. And people were reading it as a recent news. So the report we got was that people now went back to attack those herdsmen again. So it was just a fake news that was really costly. And at the end of the day, a lot of bloodshed was recorded. A lot of people were killed. Even today, I was discussing with one of my very close friends, and she saw something posted on social media about getting rich quickly. If you want to be rich, you can click on this platform. And we were discussing it like, this is really sensitive, especially to young people who are just growing up, who are in their developmental stages, and they need the right guidance. So to be objective and fair on African governments, can we really say that any measure they're using right now is really high-handed, considering these reports that we are getting in terms of fake news and all the other atrocities that are being committed on social media platforms? To be objective, Gideon, do we think any measure these governments are taking right now is really high-handed?
So fake news is terrifying, and if you look at the way it manifested on social media platform, it's arguably terrifying. We've seen so many cases of cyber fraud. We've seen so many cases of spread of fake news and irresponsible use of social media platforms. Yes. But we have to look at it like this is a reflection of our society. Social media is not isolation. So when people in the society are not good, people, they don't have good values, no moral values. So the activities on social media just reflect who they are. So when you look at this problem, it's a problem of failure of governance, of failure of leadership in Africa, and that has manifested to this level of what you have on social media. And what the government needs to do is to try to make the citizen responsible so that they can be responsible on the social media. So if you don't tackle this issue from the grassroots, then there's no way you can tackle it on social media. And when it comes to the regulations on social media, you see how social media work is different from how conventional broadcast organization or print media is different from how they work. So you have to do a lot of research from the academics to understand this problem and how this problem can be tackled. So because social media operates in a very complex socio-technical environment, there are so many stakeholders that are involved. You have the companies, the media giants, they have their designers, they have their programmers, data analysts, you have the end users, you have policymaker. So how to make sure that social media is safe and safe for everyone to use and people use social media responsible is to bring together all these different stakeholders and let's talk about these problems. Let's see how we can solve this problem. So that is the way to go. It's not, social media is not a space you can regulate by just going to the National Assembly or going to the legislature and coming up with some laws and say, okay, this is the laws that we want to use to regulate social media. It's not going to work. And that is evident from what you see in Nigeria, where the government banned Twitter and people still find their way to use Twitter. And when the government says if you use Twitter, then you are going to be prosecuted, and people say there is no law that says they should not use Twitter. So this sort of kind of rebellion coming from the people is because the stakeholders were not engaged before coming up with such policy. So online harm, spread of social, spread of fake news, and cyber fraud. There are so many ways that you can solve it, but you need to bring together all the stakeholders that are involved, the academics, the policymaker, the end users, the media giants. You sit on a round table, you analyze the problem, you discuss the problem. There's some of it that you need to do a lot of research on, and then you come up with solutions that everybody will be able to key into and make sure that you sanitize that space. But without doing that, if the government thinks that they can regulate social media like other space, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. And if you look at the United Kingdom, US that you have mentioned, you see the way they go about this problem, because it's not a problem that is peculiar to Africa. Is you see cases of people going on social media to racially abuse footballers and other people in UK, in US, and other countries, and you see that the government is engaging media giants, they're engaging policymakers, they're engaging their citizens on how to stop this problem. And I can give you one example of how the government is engaging the citizens. You look at all these continental bodies like UEFA, like other continental body, you see that they devote quality time on advocacy against racism and all of that, because they look at all those activities that kind of unite young people, like football, like this thing, and they launch a lot of campaign using those platforms, those channels to reach out to a lot of young people. So this is how to go about this thing. It's about engaging, it's about dialogue, it's about thinking people on the round to discuss the problem and move forward.
Thank you so much for that. I mean, I remember even in previous episodes, we've actually talked about topics that have to do with government calling all stakeholders together, engaging people, you know, so that we won't be, African leadership won't be tagged as military-styled leadership. You know, as you said, in other climes, governments, they engage the people, they try to get their feedbacks, they try to know what they're thinking about and all that, not just maybe waking up and saying that this is that this is what we are going to do and we are going to do it. Nobody can stop us. I think we've been saying this and we will continue to say it. If we really want to institutionalize democracy in Africa, our leadership, our government in Africa needs to know how to engage people, especially young people who are full of energy, who have the drive and the commitment to really do the work and to get the mission, you know, accomplished. They need to be engaged. They need to be talked to, and their feedbacks on different issues need to be gotten by the government before they take this action. In fact, you've really said a lot of things today, but just before I let you go on today's episode, and you've really touched on, you know, some of the things I just wanted to say, especially we're not looking at it now that social media regulations in Africa, a lot of people have been commenting on it that they're not really fighting hate speech, you know, and disinformation or irresponsible use of social media. They are silently, you know, silencing dissenting voices and shutting down the only democratic spaces in which Africans can demand change, you know, and accountability from their leaders. I mean, this is really deep. This is really deep. And that was a comment made by an African political commentator. So I really want to ask before I let you go on this episode. Now, we know that in Nigeria, there's a ban on Twitter. Some individuals have, stood up and have been trying to get in touch with government officials to say that you have no right to ban, this social media platform. They are trying to get, charges to court, and it's just been like on and off. I really want to take it from that part about bodies, the other bodies that, are in charge of different groups, maybe sports or politics. For instance, in Africa, we have the African Union. What do you think, do you think they have a part to play in this role? Because citizens now feel caged. They feel powerless. They feel helpless because their leaders come up with different, methodologies that seem to be high-handed in trying to regulate social media platforms. How do you think, these bodies like the African Union and other political bodies in the world or in Africa, how do you think can help out with, the situation that we are actually in right now? Do you think they have, a place in all this?
So the African Union must take a clue from the European Union. You see how the European Union go about regulations. For instance, we have the GDPR, which is the general data regulation that governs how organizations that collect data from people that are living in the European Union countries, how they retain those data, what they do with those data, and the rights of the citizens in knowing how their data are being used. So that was adopted in 2016. And even apart from that continental policy framework, we have a lot of other frameworks that are coming up that are coming up from the European Union on how to regulate these things. And why they come up with those kind of continental framework is to try to solve the problem that can come from different nations. the social media and digital platform, how it works is that it spreads across. You can be in Nigeria and actually abuse or misuse the data of someone that is in South Africa.
Yes.
So when you have discrepancies in the laws that applies to social media or digital platform regulation in Nigeria, what you have in Ghana, what you have in South Africa, then it becomes difficult to prosecute anyone because there are discrepancies in the law. So there should be a kind of a continental policy framework that guides the use of social media, the use of digital platforms like we have in Europe. And I also mentioned bodies that are continental bodies, like the Union of European Football Association, UEFA. I told you about how they use different fora to preach against racism, against online harms, and so on and so forth. And these people also invest a lot of money in research in various universities across Europe to kind of understand the perceptions of the people that use this system, to kind of give them orientation, education on online harms and the implications of it. So I think African Union should learn from the European Union. In Africa today, there are so many organizations that collect people's data, and there are no laws to prosecute them if they misuse data. For instance, if my data is collected and I don't want that data to be shared with a particular third party, if an organization in Africa decides to share my data with a third party that I have not authorized or without my consent, there's no law to prosecute such organization. So we need to start coming up with this continental framework, policy framework to guide the use of social media, to guide the use of digital platforms, and to make sure that citizens use this platform responsibly in a way that that is not going to pose any harm to anybody. So these are the things, these are the areas that I think African Union should be looking at in terms of work, in terms of advocacy, and so on and so forth.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much. It's been a wonderful time. We have to go, but I know that our viewers have learned a lot today from our insights, from our conversations. And like we said, you can get through to us. You can send your emails to info@factcorner.org. We'd like to know what you think about the topic of today, as we've discussed about different angles, the stakeholder engagement, the continental, policy framework, and all the things we've discussed today. We would like to know your comments, your feedback, and what you think about this topic. So please get your comments to us at info@factcorner.org, and you can also get our videos, watch them on Facebook and on YouTube. Okay, so till we meet again next time on another exciting edition of Every Voice Matters. I am Maria Alabi, and I'm saying have a wonderful weekend. Bye-bye.
Let me get her.